Welcome back. I'm gonna start recording now. Everyone, please. This is from this page onward. I need you to pay attention and try to understand what is happening. I want to discuss this. I think it's important. That you understand the effect of an increase in oil prices in the short run and in the medium run. That is quite important, right? Why? Probably because you might have to answer a question in the exam about it, or you might have to buy oil one day in your life. I don't know, but I think it's important. Anyway, so we have looked at the demand shock, which shifted the IS curve, but left the potential output unaffected, thus leaving the position of PC unaffected. There are other shocks which affect both the demand potential and output. Example, oil shock. So oil prices shocks are experienced in 1970s, and that was when there was an OPEC embargo, where the countries, which oil producers countries, had colluded to increase prices. And then there was another one in year 2000. This is just history, it's not important. I will tell you when it's becoming important. Rapid growth of emerging economies such as China caused the demand for oil to increase and led to an increase in oil prices. In 2008, larger decrease in oil prices. Of course, economics were going through recession, so you should expect that. For 2014, we don't really know what was happening. And this year, there was some random event where oil prices were becoming negative. And I had somebody calling me from Russia telling me, so should I buy oil stocks? And I'm like, actually, I'm not your financial advisor, and I think it's a bad idea. But that was because options were maturing, like the option contract were reaching maturity. So that was an issue. But those are not important data. Okay, so let us discuss the larger increase in price of oil and discuss what are the effects in the short run and in the medium run. The immediate problem we face is that equation derived in the chapters has no price in them. This is because till now, we assume that output is produced using labor only. One way to address this is to assume that output is produced by using labor and other input, i.e. energy, and find out what effect an increase in the price of oil has on the price set by firms and other relationship between output and employment. Now, some people, when they get asked a question, they like to copy everything in the slide and try to put it in the solution as a solution. B1, you won't get marks for that. You actually need to explain properly what you are talking about. Not copy my slide and put in the thing as a solution. So the easier way is to assume that increase in the price of oil is captured in the markup, i.e., as discussed in chapter 8, we say that price setting equation P is equal to 1 plus mu W, which means this was the price setting relation I discussed in chapter 8. Given wage setters, given wage setters and wages, if you hold wages constant, an increase in the price of oil increases the cost of production, forcing firms to increase the price to maintain same level of profit. So having made that assumption, we can track the dynamic of an increase in the markup on Y and mu. So you see, we find a way of capturing price in our model. So if you increase oil prices, it's equivalent to increasing a markup, which causes an increase in your real wages, which will cause an increase in your natural rate of unemployment. If you go back to chapter 8, you remember that I say the factors which affect your natural rate of unemployment was a markup and what? And the catch-all variables. So an increase in the price of oil is equivalent to an increase in the markup. It leads to lower real wages and a higher natural rate of unemployment. So that is important, you need to remember. But you need to remember what happened in the medium run and in the short run, right? So the effect of an increase in the price of oil, the graph look like this. Of course, your price setting will shift down, and then your natural rate of unemployment will increase. Recall a wage setting relation is downward sloping. Higher unemployment lead to lower real wages. So at equilibrium, we have that your real wage is 1 over 1 plus the markup. Refer to the graph given above. The equilibrium was initially at point A, and the initial natural rate of unemployment was UN. If you increase the markup, it leads to a downward shift of the PS from PS to PS hyphen. Now, I want to stop here and ask you a question because I think this is important. So I'm going to choose anyone in random and ask them a question, and they have to answer. So I'm going to talk to say Rick. Tariq, what happened if I pursue, remember the wage setting and price setting. What happened if I'm changing two things at the same time? For example, if government becomes strictly manage antitrust laws and the minimum wages increases as well, what will happen?
I think minimum wages affects the catch-all variable, if I'm not mistaken, which is Z, which would fall under the wage setting curve. So it would affect the wage setting.
Right.
So say, for example, if you increase minimum wages, that would affect the wage setting.
Right. And then?
That would, of course, that would probably increase the real wage, and that would affect your wage setting curve, shifting it outward. And you get like new unemployment rates.
Right. And the other one?
I think it would also affect the other one as well.
Right. So I need you now to know the combination and the shift and the net effect. Is that fine?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, I have spoken that, I have discussed that, so that's fine. You know, I need to clear stuff when I'm thinking, like when I discuss. Okay, so the higher so here we are only talking about the equilibrium. So I'm going back to my discussion. So when you have, so at equilibrium, you have your real wage is equal to 1 plus a markup. And remember the PS was the horizontal line, right? So if you increase the markup, it leads to a downward shift of PS, and the higher the markup, the lower the real wage implied by PS. Equilibrium move from A to that. Real wages is lower than natural unemployment rate, right? So when the natural rate of unemployment goes up, it leads in turn to a decrease in the natural level of employment. Now remember, we had a relationship where we linked unemployment, employment, and output. Now it means if unemployment is going up, if an increase in the natural rate of unemployment, it means there's a decrease in the natural rate of employment. So if you continue assuming that Y is equal to employment, then a decrease in potential level of employment lead to an identical decrease in potential output, right? Now, that was when you're talking about wage setting and price setting. Now we go to ISLM-PC. So assume the initial equilibrium is at point A in both the top and the bottom panel with output at potential. So inflation is stable and R is equal to that. So I'm inferring to this, this is where we start. So we're starting at this point, right, at point A. Right, so as the price of oil increases, the natural level of output decreases from YN to YN hyphen. The PC curve shift up from PC to PC hyphen. So if you come here, this is what is shifted from here to there, right? Okay, so we know that there is a shift in our price Philip curve. If the IS curve does not change and the central bank does not change the policy, output does not change, but the same level of output is now associated with a higher inflation rate. So you need to know that. So if this shift there, output does not change, but now we are talking at a higher level of inflation. So remember that, right? So we talk about higher. So in the short run, output does not change, but inflation is higher. Remember that. You have to explicitly explain that actually this is what happens. So output does not change, but inflation have changed. Okay, now, so we have the graphs. Then if the central bank were to leave the policy rate unchanged, output exceed the now lower level of potential output, and inflation will keep increasing. At some point, the central bank will increase the policy rate to stabilize inflation. As it does so, the economic move up from A to A hyphen along the IS curve in the top graph, right? So it's now start from going here, going there, right? So it's shifting. This should just be A hyphen. This should be double hyphen. It should be moving from here to there, right? So that's what you need to remember. So along the IS curve in the top graph. So when the central bank, of course, changes the policy rate, remember, is what? The policy rate is on the axis. So if you change it, if you increase it, for example, it's a movement along the IS curve. So that is important. Don't say shift when you change policy rate, you lose marks. So the economic is back at point. So in the medium run, then it means that For this graph, it will go back until it is this point where we are at a new YN hyphen in the medium run. And here, it will be coming up to here. It's coming up to this point, which is a new Y natural level of output. Right. So because potential output is lower, the increase in the price of oil is reflected in a permanent lower level of output along the way. Lower output is associated with higher inflation termed as stagflation. So remember that. So how valid is our assumption that the IS does not shift? So that's the assumption, we made it above there. So you need explicitly to tell us that actually the assumption you made when you are answering your question is either the IS is not shifting. If the IS is shifting, then you explain what is happening if the IS is shifting. So these various channels through which increase in the price of oil may affect demand and shift the IS. So the higher the price of oil, for example, may lead to firms to change their investment plan, i.e. terminate all energy intensive investment, or the increase in the price of oil redistribute income from oil buyers to oil producers. Oil producers may spend less than oil buyers, leading to a decrease in demand. So IS will actually shift to the left, leading to a decrease in output, not only in the medium run, but also in the short run. Another issue is the evolution of inflation. Until now, output decreased to its new lower potential level, inflation continued to increase, right? Now, when the economic reaches point A, inflation is higher than it was before the increase in the price of oil. If the central bank wants to return inflation back to its level, it must decrease output below potential for some time to decrease inflation. The economy may go through a larger recession with only a partial recovery. So that's one of the challenges. Another issue is inflation expectation formation. Suppose if inflation is not equal to last year inflation, instead wage setters expect inflation to be constant. In this case, output above potential lead to higher rather than increasing inflation. Then as output decline to its lower potential, inflation decline as well. When the economic reaches point, go back to full potential now at A double hyphen, inflation is back to where it was before the increase in the price of oil. No need for central bank to further decrease output to decrease inflation. So that is when you have inflation expectation formation, that central bank does not need to intervene, which we can internalize expectation accurately. Right, so conclusion. So the short run versus the medium run. So I saw up to slide 37, please make sure that you really understand what happened from 28 to 37. I think pay attention, understand the oil shocks, understand both short run, medium run, understand the main concept in the chapter. But this one, I think you need to really make sure that you have a solid grasp of them. Right. On the conclusion, it's just discussing about the short run and the medium run and the trade-off versus, so short run and medium run, surely we are only just contrast, the disagreement between economists is only to do with the what? With the way we are viewing things. There are economists who are short-termists and there are economists who are long-termists. So often the struggle is, what do you want? Who are you talking to? You might be talking to a short-termist and they will tell you this. Then you might be talking to a long-term termist, a long-term focused economist, and they will tell you something else. But in reality, it just depends on the trade-off we make when we are trying to do to execute policy. So know that. So I'm not going to discuss this. And then the way things are, and the shock and propagation as well. I don't think this is just a summary of what we have been talking about. So neither am I going to discuss this, but I will encourage you to read it. I'm going to stop here and welcome question if there are any questions.